Good morning and happy Thursday to everybody. Welcome to this week's Market of the Moment. Oh, I made a cool little banner this week to put up. So, when people are scrolling through their Facebook, they can see this. So now I have to remember to do this each week. But good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We are excited to be back on and talking with our special guest, Mr. Dave Zajdzinski, this week about his goals. So, and we're going to come back to Dave here in a minute, but I do want to make sure I recognize everybody else that is here and a part of our Market of the Moment cast. So Mr. Jesse Herpel's out playing today with the family reunion over at the Keller Williams Integrity First office. Mindy, I don't know if I told you, but I talked to Steven in your office about joining us in a couple of weeks to kind of give us a recap of the things that have come from Family Reunion this week. So
I think that's awesome. They did the inspirational breakfast this morning. It's actually still going on, but we got to watch a couple of really cool stories, including KW being one of the #1 places in the world for women to work. So it was lots of fun to watch those stories this morning, and it'll be great to hear a recap.
Yeah. So we're going to have Steven on in a couple of weeks. And for those of you guys who don't know, that's Miss Mindy Jones, the owner and operator of the Amy Jones Group. So Mindy, thank you for joining us. We are also joined by Miss Amber Kovarik of Guild Mortgage. Amber, thank you so much for being here and each week helping us understand what that money situation looks like out there, because we need the money to make all this work. And then we have Miss Sharon Terhune, the Vice President Sales Manager for Fidelity National Title. Sharon, thank you for being on this week.
Good morning.
Okay, and so we're going to now, for those of you guys who weren't here, when was it? It was like November, I think, Dave, that we had you on, and we spent a lot of time in the third or the fourth quarter talking about goal setting for 2021. And I think that one of the most important things that we can look at when we talk about goal setting is what do we do once we've set them, right? So to set these goals and then just to not look at them again doesn't help our business very much. And Dave volunteered to be our guinea pig throughout the year to join us to give us updates on where they're at and the progress towards their goals, as well as what things they've had to adapt to. So, of course, an extremely low inventory market, I'm sure, is causing some things that you need to adapt to, Dave. So thank you so much for being part of today.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. I appreciate you guys having me on. So it's good for us. And hopefully if anybody can get something from it, then I'm happy. But probably best if I share my screen and I can actually just show you numbers. I think that is the best thing we can do is just take a look at it. So let me try to share here. Let me know if this works. Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen. Okay, well, let's try it again. But if I can't, I can just obviously tell you.
Here I typed up what your goals were. When we met last year, we talked about what those goals were going to be. So looking to close 140 transactions through 2021. Volume of $44.3 million, and then incorporating the showing agents into your business was going to be a big part of what you were doing for this year as well. So I know that you had discussed having 48 open houses throughout the year. So are we going to go past those goals in the first quarter?
Yes and no, right? So we've got the lead measured lag measures. We've got, and it really, I think, Mindy will probably cover this as we get into the market. So I'm going to look at my numbers here that you can't see. So we use a company called SISU, SISU. If anybody's tracking their goals, I think you have to have something. What I came from was CTE, Commitment to Excellence. I know that was a Keller Williams product. Loved it, used it for years. It was cumbersome to integrate our CRM with it. So what SISU does, and it's not cheap. I think it's $2,500 a year. So you should really need it to spend that kind of money. But now my agents can go into our CRM and say, I booked an appointment with this person. It pulls all the data over, pulls the lead source and it books. So now we can really track everything. And that's really the only way we can do it, right? If we're not tracking, then we're just setting our goals and not following up with it. So here's to be on pace to do 140 units and 44 million. We need to be at 5.9 million and 19 closings. We're at 15 closings and 4.6 million, but we've got 31 between closed and pended. So we have another 16 pended. So that's 31 and 10.6 million. So we are way past our goals. Just we haven't closed them yet, right? So we're just off the pace when it comes to what should have closed. Almost 4 more units. Now we're going to close 3 more. So we'll be right there. But I think we're killing it when you look at 10.6 million already in escrow or close. So that puts us way ahead of pace.
Dave, congratulations.
So we're happy there. But what is crazy, what's got me nervous is we only have 3 closing in March. So when I look at this, I go, well, what the heck? Where is everything? We've got 5 in escrow for the fourth quarter for almost 1.6 million. Those are all new builds because we just can't get people under contract right now. We've got 1 in July, 2 in June, 2 in May, 3 in April, and only 3 in March. And so I'm a little nervous we've got 26 buyers right now. We can't get into escrow, but we are writing offers. Sisu tracks all of that for us when we sign them to a buyer broker. So we can track appointments set, met, and signed into clients. And we've just got this big backlog and we're almost drowning with new buyers coming in. Where do we put them? We can't get them out of the funnel. So that's kind of our biggest constraint right now is a lot of our lead partners that we work with, both the leads that we generate, and then we work with Zillow, OpCity, HomeLight, Ojo. They just want to keep giving us more buyers because of the demand, and we're getting overworked. And my agents are coming back in on Monday going, I wrote 6 offers this weekend, none of them got accepted, right? And so we're good on what we can control, and just what we can't control is when a buyer eventually gets into escrow. But I think we're going to blow past our goals if we can just find homes for people. So Dave,
So let me ask. So there actually I've got 2 questions. But so one, when it comes to those people who you do get under contract, right? The buyers, when you do find that opportunity for them, you do get the contract accepted. What is the window you're seeing in closing time, right? Because we're hearing about a lot of leasebacks. We're hearing about a lot of extended closings. Are those kind of things impacting, or are they closing really quickly? So the nice thing is that that if you put them under contract today, within 30 days, that you're probably closing that property.
And we're seeing them close sooner, but that's a small sample size, so it could be anecdotal. But we're either seeing them close sooner, or like I said, we've got more than half of what we've pended this year has gone to builders, if that's what our client wants, great. But we're finding that's not really what they want. It's just they've given up on so many offers. But then, we're now losing control of who we're working with. Is the one thing I don't like. Is now we've got to we're at the mercy of the builder's title and builder's lender, and it's not how we started it. It's not that wasn't the goal with our client, but they're just saying, well, what do we do next? Where do we go? So typically they're having to go a little bit further out and get something that they didn't really want, but they just it's really their only option for buyers under 400 in the East Valley. Where do you go? So it's either closing, to answer that question, it's either closing quick or going on the one. Two contracts came in yesterday, and they were both in November and December because they're new builds. Right?
Gotcha. Well, and then, so Dave, and then the second part is, so you mentioned having 26 buyers who are ready to go. And so what does that consult look like with them when you're talking to them about this process? Because, none of us like rejection, and whether that's personal rejection or rejection of the offer or writing on the house, we typically feel good about it when we're submitting it. So, having those declined is not a favorable outcome for anybody.
Right. 100%. So I'm a big believer in consultations, no matter what the scenario, seller, buyer, right? We all do listing presentations, but I think so many realtors don't want to do a buyer consultation, which I think is unfortunate. So, and I think a lot of that is because of how the buyers are coming into the market through a Zillow, or realtor.com, whatever it is. These bigger sources that are bringing the consumer to the realtor are starting with opening the door, right? Hey, I just saw someone, I want to go see this home. And we're having to slow it down, say, we'll go see that home. But after that, if you're a serious buyer and if you really do want to be a successful buyer, that's the language I like to use. If you want to be a successful buyer in this market, we need to have a good 20 to 30 minute strategy session. And are you open to that? Would that be helpful to you? And then we've got a 47-page PowerPoint, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's not. We get through it pretty quickly, but it really sets them up for what does it take. And we just use data. We don't say this is what we think. We just use the Cromford report. We use data. We narrow in on their price point, their zip code, and say, look, in this price point, in this zip code, 62% of the homes are going to go over asking. Is that something you want to do? Is that something you're comfortable doing? And then part of our slideshow is, what does a good offer look like and a bad offer look like, or not good, but what's going to be more successful? And we're showing them it's not necessarily price. So we would say, you would think that this is a more successful offer, but because we're going to basically tilt the contract into the seller's favor, because it's naturally favoring the buyers. So we just kind of do an anatomy of what a successful offer looks like and say, if you're willing to waive this, and do this, you can be successful. And if you're not going to have that consultation and bring in somebody like Amber to talk about like a single premium mortgage insurance and what we can do creatively, or we're starting to write into our contracts that the buyer will cover seller closing costs. That way, if we have an appraisal issue, hey, our offer is $5,000 lower, but it's to protect that appraisal gap because we're already coming in $25,000 higher, but then we're going to put $5,000 over here to cover your closing costs. I just think as we all get more creative, people who aren't doing anything different are just going to get left behind, right? So you just really have to be creative. Without that consultation, I think it can appear self-serving. That, hey, I want a higher commission because I want you to spend $30,000 over, and I want you to do this so I can get paid. But once we can turn it into, I'm on your side of the table and I'm here to consult you on how to get a successful offer, we find people have more buy-in and they're less frustrated. And what I want to avoid and what we want to avoid is that buyer fatigue, where they're like, forget it. I've been searching for a while. I've lost down to 8. They're going to get fatigued, right? So the sooner we can get them to buy into what it takes, the less likelihood of that.
Yeah, and I think that is imperative, right? Because you just look at that human behavior part of all of this, and the fact that how frustrating can it be that you keep trying to find your way into your home for your family, and this is a real personal experience, and when you're getting rejected, then it makes it very frustrating. So what about sellers, Dave, who you're talking with, you're having those listing conversations, and during the course of that conversation, they're looking at you and saying, well, where am I going to go? I hear how hard it is to buy something right now. So what do you say to those folks?
That is probably our biggest reason our personal listing inventory is down, is because of that right there. So there's some things that you just can't change it. We have to figure out where they need to go. And if they don't have that figured out, then what are we going to do? So we have so many listings on hold because of that. So I don't know if we have the right answer for that. I have a listing that's coming up and they actually have a rental property that they can move into. So that's why they're listing, because they know exactly where they're going. So I think removing that constraint is a little bit harder, but I know we've had a few here this year where we are going to keep them contingent. So we're saying, hey, we're going to list this property, but it's contingent on them finding another house. And we have buyers willing to wait. So I think that's the advantage that the sellers can have today is we have the inventory, we control it. So yes, you can write an offer, but we're not going to execute it until we find something to buy. So I don't know, Mindy,
that's a great approach. I don't know if I've heard that one too much. So that's
you can do it. I mean, right now it's when you get that many offers.
Control the listings, so yeah, why not? To be able to say, great, you can have this house, except you can't move in until we we find
we're not going to start inspections until we go on under contract on something else, and it's really just a reverse buyer contingency.
Right.
So that's personally what I would do if it's my home, and we've been actively trying to get into a different house, and so now we can buy and then sell ours later, and that's who's winning, whoever can do that. So we're trying to find sellers who's can you hold on to your house and go buy first. And I know Amber, you've got some solutions for that, right? With some different loan products, but getting creative with that is what's winning, because it's that insecurity of like, why even try this? Because I hear it's crazy out there, so why do I want to get involved with it? But I think, Mindy, you made a great point earlier about how much equity there is and how much people can win if they transact right now, how much they're going to realize in gains. Because we've all of us here saw the market in 08 to 10 and 11. We all remember that. So it's like profits aren't profits until you take them. So you can execute those profits now in your home and still capture what's forecasted. It's that's really why I want to move personally. Even though it's such a hassle, I want to do that too. I want to lock it in, and not see it, just take profits. So.
And I think to your point, Dave, all of that is too much to communicate if you don't have a sit-down meeting with your buyers. So there's the one piece about making sure that you're communicating the strategy and that people understand that the opportunity of the current market is huge, and it will take some dedication and tenacity to actually be able to realize it for themselves. But the other piece of it is really helping them to understand where the sense of urgency is coming from, the fact that they're going to be able to sell a property with at least a 20% increase in appreciation over the last 12 months and a projected 30% appreciation in the new home that they're buying, essentially making anything that you can buy right now a good idea, right? Even if it's not a long-term hold strategy. You can't convey all of that to someone unless you sit down with them and build some trust with them to help them understand that it's exactly the words that you used right now, Dave. I'm looking to do the same type of thing. I'm thinking about the same type of thing. I'm trying to figure out how to manage something like that for my family, right? So then they really understand that you're in the same situation as they are. You're their neighbor, you're their friend. This is where you excel, Dave, ahead of a Zillow. This is where you excel ahead of a computer and an AI. You are their neighbor, right? And you just can't communicate all of that unless you actually are sitting down with them.
Yeah.
Well,
100%.
And Dave, you made the point as well that it does sound like when you're like, well, you might have to go over and you might have to do this and you might have to do that. It doesn't, that until they can understand the whole situation, it does sound self-serving, right? And so the reality is that if we can help people to understand, what's happening in the market, and that, the good deal is getting a deal, and that's really couldn't be more true than it is now. So, Dave, before we went live, we were talking a little bit about how some of the challenges around partners and not having the ability to work with some of your partners around the builder stuff. And you mentioned Amber and some of the products that Amber has, and Amber's going to do an update in a little bit, but Amber, can you talk about that a little bit, about some of those products that you have? And this is why Dave looks to his partners to be partners, because he knows that he can go to Amber. He knows that he can come to Fidelity if we've got something that can help, that he knows those relationships. And Amber, I know you guys have been working a lot over at Guild to try to develop more products to make that transition easier for sellers and buyers.
Yeah, and I mean, the consultations are the key for the real estate agent and the lender. And even I've been doing consultations my whole career, but they've changed over, the last few months with this market being so competitive, because now, I talked to a client last night. Their max sales price is $300,000. And so I'm talking to them about how they're probably going to have to look at homes at like 280 and why, and what does that mean? And, they want to put 3% down on a conventional loan, but where else can they pull funds from if they need to go in over appraised value? And I'm like setting the stage, right? And so then I call the realtor and I let them know, this is what we talked about. I gave them all the numbers. I showed them. So they're like primed for now that realtor to have the same conversation about, you're going to have to go in over asking, and this is going to be challenging. And so what sales price do we really need to be looking at to make sure that you can qualify? So it's so important. And depending on the client, we're looking at bridge loans if they've got a home to sell that they need to extract equity for the down payment. We're using a lot of single premium mortgage insurance right now proactively. So like in the consultation, I'm saying to them, hey, let's say that you're out with Dave and you find your dream home. And he says, I know this is listed at 400, but we need to go in at 430 in order to have a chance to win this. I'm going to show you how we can use a single premium mortgage insurance policy to take that potential $30,000 gap and turn it into a $3,700 out-of-pocket expense for you. So then I can call Dave and say, hey, Dave, I've talked to the Smiths and they feel comfortable going $30,000 over appraised value. It's going to cost them $3,700 in a mortgage insurance policy. And they are ready to make an aggressive offer. And you can only do that if you have like the right team to be having those conversations with people. But that's what it's taking to win. And I was just talking to my team this morning before this, and I was thinking, those clients last night that are maxed at 300, in my head, I'm thinking, how are they going to win? Like 300,000, and I'm thinking they might not find a house, and they're going to be competing against cash and large down payments. And so it's not being the bearer of bad news and telling them that it's hopeless, but it's reminding them why they're doing this. Why is this so important to you? Why do you want a new home? Why do you want to take advantage of this market? And making sure they know what they're going to have to do in order to compete in this market with the financing and the down payment.
I think it's that education piece that's so key right now. And if we're honest, if we're good at our jobs, it's always a key component, right? Education, empowerment should always be what our focus is in this industry. And I think if anything, that's the silver lining of this type of industry, is it's hopefully forcing people to be better professionals, be better fiduciaries to our clients so that they're continuing to educate them on their best solutions. But, two things I hear in that messaging. The first, a list price, the purpose of a list price is to expose the listing to the greatest audience, period. And so we need to first start educating our clients, because I have clients who will say, I'll buy that house, but I'm not going over asking. And to me, the over asking conversation is so arbitrary because the number was just assigned by somebody. They could have assigned that number $10,000 higher or $10,000 less, but to a buyer, they hear the number and the number is now the number, right? And so I think we need to be educating clients at a list price. The purpose is to get as many eyeballs on the property as possible. It's not how much it's worth. It's not how much someone will pay for it. It's just a strategic number to ensure we've got the greatest visibility, right? And so what you're going to pay is what's competitive. Now that's up to you as far as what you feel, right? But we need to get out of our heads that the list price matters from that perspective. And then the other piece is what Amber said. If you've got a buyer capped at 300, we have to help them understand two things. They're probably not going to be looking at houses that are 300. And number two, the purpose of this house becomes a stepping stone for the next house. And I know people don't love to talk about moving again when they're just trying to move once, right? They want to move into this house. Many people at that price point, it's first time buyers. So they're like so excited for owning their first house. And all I want to talk about is what it means for their second house, right? But if you have the relationship built with them, you can do that. And you can say, hey, I know you needed a 3-bedroom in Gilbert. Guess what? If we go on pace for what we expect for the next year, when you go in to buy your second house, you will be able to get what you want, and you'll be at such a better financial position to do so than you are today. Because your financial position is what it is, and there's no judgment around that, what we need to do is we just need to get you in the market. So this first one might be a 2-bedroom. This first one might be in Santan Valley. This first one might be a 2-story instead of a single story, right? This first one might have laminate countertops instead of granite countertops. But what this first home will do for you will be life-changing. And if we can share that message with people and help them reframe their purpose, right? We literally can change lives right now. It's an opportunity that is unbelievable for people.
You know, something you said, Mindy, that I loved, and it really resonates for any part, no matter what market we're in. It doesn't matter if we're in the market today that we have today, or it changes in a year or 2 or 3, you know, from now, and completely reverses to where we're getting offers below, you know, what our list price is. It's really, it's what the consumer's willing to pay for it. That's all your house is worth, and that's really the story. It could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more than what we listed it for, and it could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 less than what we listed for. If someone's not willing to pay it, it's not worth that. And that's really the demand really justifies the
and that flip side, Sharon, that flip side is so important to keep in mind for the buyer side, right? Because when somebody pays $30,000 over list price or $50,000 over list price, that house then has become worth that much to at least one person, right? So and so that's what, you know, I enjoy this part of the conversation, because, you know, something is worth exactly as much as somebody's willing to pay for it. Now, it may only be that one person, or there may be multiple people, but right now in our market, there's a lot of people willing to pay more than what that list price is. Yeah.
Yep. 1,000,000%.
So, okay, Dave, I do want to go back to specific to your goals for a moment, and talk about, okay, so we talked about, you know, where you're at, and that we're on track for the transactions and the volume goals. And so I know that introducing the showing agents and developing that part of your business and the open houses was a big part of what we were looking at when we talked in November. And before we went live, you know, we had talked about how there was already been some changes around that. Can you tell us what that's looked like?
Yeah, so we did get our second showing partner mid to end of January. She started February 1st, so she's still fairly new, but that was a very long process for us. We took our time and interviewed. We had 41 people that we considered. And I think we took 6 of them out to dinner. So we did like a 4-hour dinner, which I will never not hire that way again. It was exhausting, but I felt like in a 4-hour dinner with the key people of your team, you can get 6 months of work together of who they are. Where it's work with somebody 6 months down the road, like I had no idea about that aspect of Amber. I didn't know that about her. Like so it was a phenomenal process, kind of exhausting, expensive when you're buying a bunch of dinners, but I think finding the right person is worth it. So she started February 1st. We're really happy with the 2 showing partners we have. And that is the lever for our business right now, is being able to take this bandwidth with more buyers and having those showing partners out there. But one of the contract obligations in the showing partner is 48 open houses, and it has been a challenge. So just because our listing inventory is low, and then when we do get them listed, they go under contract right away. So our first showing partner, she's on pace. She has done her pace, but she hasn't had open houses the last 2 weeks. So we just shifted to, if you're not going to have an open house, then you need to spend 6 hours additional that week doing specific type of prospecting. So we're doing circle prospecting, FSBO prospecting, and expireds. So if you don't do your open houses, because the open houses are really, they're not sell houses, as we all know. They're really for them to get face-to-face with people to see how they're doing as realtors, right? There's 2 aspects to the showing partner: support your lead agent and give them that leverage. But then let's see if you're ready to be a realtor in a year from now, because it's a 12-month contract, and we just have to make sure that you can actually sell real estate and that people respond to you and you can do this. So we just need them to get in front of more people. And open houses are just, I don't know, they're a challenge. They are a challenge to get into. So, but our circle prospecting is something we're doing for our clients. So we're doing 2 things. I'll give you one additional thing on that. We are now doing videos to our sellers, and we haven't talked to our Amber about it. We want Amber to shoot a quick 20-second video. that says, hey, I'm working with Mindy Jones. This is where she's at. She's well qualified, and give us a little 20-second video. And then we're going to have our clients do a video in the house that they, we love this house. We understand we're going to come in higher. We're willing to do this, this, and this, and try to do these love letters via video. So we're just switching to that. That's something Stevie D recommended we do. And then
I love that.
I think
that's awesome. They say 77%. Yeah, they say something like video. I heard yesterday in one of the KW, like video is about 77% as good, if you will, as face-to-face.
Wow.
So it totally amps up the difference between just a written letter, right? And the buyer, you know, whatever, knocking on the person's door and saying, hi, I love your house, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine getting a video in your living room as the seller? Like, we love your home. We're prepared to do what it takes. Our lender is going to shoot you a quick video and let you know how prepared we are. Like, okay. Like, if other people are doing that, then we've got to jump on board with it too.
I love
but
it.
We're doing, for what our showing partners are doing now, is if they went out, they showed, you know, 2 clients in 2 specific areas, they're now doing, you know, we're relying on Fidelity to give us some information there so we can start contacting ready to go people in that area to say, hey, I just showed the home on 5th Street just around the corner from you. Have you considered selling your home in a market like this? So if you're not doing an open house, we need to see you making those types of phone calls to try to create more inventory and to try to find a home for our buyer.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can tell you who those likely sellers are too, Dave. That's information, and you know that.
That's what we're using that tool with Fidelity to get those people. But we do that in our consultation. So it's a value add that says not only this is what we're going to do, with your permission, we would like to call and solicit people on your behalf. And if you will give us a little video of why you want to live in DC Ranch, we'll share this with potential sellers at DC Ranch.
Excellent. You know, Dave, I really appreciate all these things that you're doing and your willingness to share with us and to have these conversations. So, you know, we're looking forward to visiting with you each quarter on where we're at on the goals. And I think most importantly are the things that we have to adjust, right, throughout the process, because it's easy to just throw some things down on paper, but to have a good understanding, which is what I love about your explanation, is that you have a good understanding of what all this translates to, you know, and what those activities need to be to achieve those goals. And, you know, throughout life, there's always curveballs we get thrown. I mean, this, you know, 2020 has been a great example of curveballs. And so, you know, if we want to be successful, we have to choose to adapt to those curveballs. And you guys are doing an amazing job. So thank you for being a part of that. And hopefully you can hang out and give us some feedback on the market update, and then when we switch over to Ms. Amber with the mortgage update as well. So, but Mindy,
absolutely.
Mindy, let's talk about the market, and let's talk about what things are looking out there right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I hinted at a few things in responding to some of the stuff that, you know, Dave is doing, which, you know, the things that Dave is talking about, I think are pieces of his business that probably were always core to his business, how they communicate with clients, how they educate clients, how they make sure that they understand what the opportunity for them are. Those are the kinds of things that you really need to be looking for when someone's representing you right now. And whether you're on the buying side or the selling side, having somebody who really understands the market, who has the experience to be able to translate the creative solutions that people can take advantage of, and has the network. That's so key right now, is the network, not only for partners like Fidelity, like Guild, but also real estate agents, right? So, you know, Dave talked a little bit about his listing inventory being down, and I'll go ahead and share my screen so that you can see. Let's see here. Okay.
Hopefully you can figure it out.
I know, right? We'll see. It's okay. I think we're going to be okay. Just got to switch off real quick. Okay. Can you see that?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So, a couple of things. He says his listing inventory is down, not surprising, right? So if you look at our update for February, and this does come from the Cromford report, which Dave mentioned that he's leveraging to share information with his clients as well, you can see that our active listings are actually down about 61% year over year. I mean, that number, just take a second to digest that. That's less than half of the inventory that we had this time last year. Simultaneously, we have about 12.5% more contracts than we did this time last year. So the key message there is that, yes, there are challenges for our sellers right now. And I think a big part of this inventory decrease is that fear of where they're going to go. And if we can help sellers understand that there are options for them, and then again, help with that shifted mindset that maybe the move that they make right now is not their long-term buy and hold, but rather their ability to release the equity in their home, get into something that they know will fast appreciate, and then allow them to then leverage the market of hopefully some greater inventory, which has to come at some point, right? As certain sects of our population kind of pull back. As Amber will talk about later, we've seen an increase in interest rates just over the last 24 hours, which could impact your monthly payment by $100 a month, which for some people will be significant. So as we start to see some things change in the market, at some point this gap will shore up. And at some point you will then have more inventory to take advantage of, but you've already gotten a 3 to 5 year head start on your appreciation in your new place, because we're projecting upwards of 30% appreciation in this next year. I mean, it's unbelievable. I want to show you this other graph. This is one that if you've been watching Market of the Moment for a while, and honestly, if this is the first time you're watching, I would recommend that you plan to tune in every Thursday. There's no better way to get an update weekly on what's happening in this market. This is something that you're not going to find on the news. You're not going to find in the newspaper. This is up to the minute information. If you look, we've been dealing with an inventory shortage for years now. We've talked about that before. The builders have been under building since the crash. We know that every year we've had a little bit less and less inventory, and then coupled with the low interest rates last year, we just crashed that apart, right? And so if you look, though, one thing is very different about 2021, and that's that orange box that you see up there, January and February. We've actually put up less new listings over the last 2 months than we had seen. And if you look at the last few months of 2020, that wasn't the case. So even though we had less inventory on the market, we were still putting up more. So it was just demand that was eating all that up. Now we've still got that thirst for the demand, but we're putting up less listings. And I think a lot of that is coming from people just not sure what to do. And so I think, to Dave's point, the consultation piece is so important. We've talked with clients about rental solutions. We've talked with clients about Amber's bridge loan options. We've talked with clients about getting into something that they know they'll be able to sell quickly, that might not be their forever home, but is something that they could compete on. Maybe it's $100,000 less. This is something that we saw with some clients. They qualified $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 home. They ended up in a $400,000 home. They could be very competitive to get into this property. They know it's at a price point that will churn really well and really fast when they want to make that change. And now they've pocketed some additional funds from a home sale should they need it over the next year or two. And then they'll be able to be stronger buyers when they go into the market again, when some inventory has been released. So that's another thing that we've seen people do, is really just make more short-term solutions to be able to release the equity in their home and decide where they want to go next.
Well, Mindy, and then when we're talking appreciation, typically we're going to see more appreciation on the lower end of the price points as well, right? $2 million houses aren't appreciating at 20%, where the $400,000 house might be appreciating at 22%.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely different by price range. And it's also, when you look at by price range, it's different for the amount of inventory that's on the market. So if you look at, and I don't know that I'll be able to find it quick enough to show it to you, but if you look at the difference here between the inventory at different price points, you can see that for homes that are under $300,000, there's only about 9.5 days of inventory. For homes that are between $500,000 and $1 million, there's about 18 days of inventory. So again, that's still not a lot, right? But it's twice what it is at the lower price point. And then if you look at properties over $1 million, which Gilbert just hit the top 5 cities with homes sold over $1 million in 2020, which is crazy. They were not on that list before. There's 75 days of inventory. So if you're looking to move up in a market that like we're in now, you may have a little more wiggle room if you're in that $500,000 to $1 million space as far as selling and being able to do your logistics that you need there. And then you may have even more wiggle room in the higher price point that you might move into. Your interest rates are going to be great for the loan that you're going to take out on those properties, and you may have a little more to choose from. So there is certainly opportunity at all price points right now.
And then, Mindy, before we went live, you said something that we didn't record. Can you repeat about the timing? And I think that is real important as well, that we're looking at what things look like, what our market really looks like overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I echoed some of these sentiments when Dave was talking, but I really just think that right now, the opportunity that people have is truly once in a lifetime. We said that about 2020, right? Because we thought, I would say most of us thought that by the middle of this year, we would start to see things settle down a little bit. And that's because the inventory was declining so quickly last year. We thought that for sure after January, people would feel comfortable putting their house on the market and we'd see this flood of inventory, not too much, but enough to start to kind of level things out a bit. And maybe by mid-2021, we'd start to see things not escalate quite as quickly. So you would have gotten 20% increase on your home in 2020. It'd be a great time for you to sell. Interest rates would be still low, but probably a little bit higher, and you'd be able to move. Well, that didn't happen. And so now we're projecting upwards of 30% appreciation. So you can either get all that appreciation in a house that you're planning on getting out of at some point, right? Or you can take the time to split your appreciation and get an enormous amount of money on the asset that you have, put yourself in the best financial position for today to get into a new asset, expect to gain a 3 to 5 year advance, right, on what you would have had to sit in your house for until you would have that kind of appreciation, and then put yourself in an even better purchasing position when the time comes. And so I just think there is definitely a sense of urgency about how do you pick something up in this market. And, Dave's talking about it. I'm looking at those Verdi at Gilbert, the Fulton Cooley Station. Like, I just want to pick up anything that I can find right now because it's a short-term opportunity. And I think that as real estate agents, as our lender partners, as our title partners, we're trying to pull out all the stops to find all the solutions for everybody and anybody who's committed to the process to be able to find something right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And that's and I just think that it's so important to realize the moment that we're in, and I think that's what that Mindy is expressing. So, okay, let's talk about some money, Amber. And how are things looking on the lending front?
Interest rates are still amazingly low, but they are on the rise. So if you've taken a peek at the stock market, you will see that we are just tremendously rallying in the stock market. And so even though the Fed is purchasing mortgage-backed securities, they're purchasing almost half of the bonds that are being purchased right now. So they're still a very integral buyer in the bond market, but they're not completely controlling it. So anytime we see the stock market rallying, it means money is coming out of bonds. And so people are feeling very up on the economy right now for a variety of different reasons, but the stimulus and the vaccines and talk of herd immunity maybe coming in the summer and things starting to open back up. And so money's flowing there instead of into bonds, causing interest rates to go up. Also, the stimulus being talked about is concern of treasury debt having to be created, which is going to, again, put pressure on bond prices, which is rising interest rates right now. So the Fed has been very clear in their communication that they will continue to buy mortgage-backed securities until unemployment is at like a full unemployment, which is like usually 4 to 5%. We are not there. We're sitting closer to like a little over 6%. So I believe they'll keep buying. And all the analysts that I watch and listen to believe we're going to see some correction in the stock market, that we're going to see some money pull out and it's going to go into bonds, but no idea when. And so if anything, this is a good little reminder that we don't know how long interest rates are going to be crazy low for. One of the reasons why this market is so incredible to buy in is because of the cost of the money and the power that you get from buying with these incredibly low interest rates. So, you know, we were at like a 2.75, now we're up to like a 2.99, maybe even a 3.125 for some clients. And now you say a 3 and they're like, what? You know, and then you have to remind them that we're still talking all-time low interest rates. But now's the time. And so when they're struggling and when you're getting them set up, one of the reminders is you want to take advantage of these low interest rates. It could be 50, 60, 70,000 in purchase price that you're getting for buying now, as opposed to interest rates going up 1%, you renting, waiting on the sidelines. So it's just one more reason to help make sure that they get out there and they fight the fight and they go make aggressive offers and they do what they can to win right now.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's funny because there's so much going on with the economy that affects everything else, you know. So I saw this morning on the news, this was 2 weeks of consecutive increase on unemployment claims. And so that's a concern. All of this money that's been infused into our economy, which essentially is just getting printed, you know, is the, you know, that causes inflation concerns. And when we have inflation, you know, the mortgage rates are one of the areas where they usually go to balance off that inflation. So, so it's so those are some legitimate concerns, and I think that's why we know what things are today, and we don't necessarily know what they're going to be in 30 days or 60 days. So doing things now becomes that bigger priority. So,
sure. And if you really like deep dive into the economy and you look at our jobless claims, and yes, we got some really good numbers this week, but they looked really good too because they've just been so bad. And so I think that there's more hype around the economy than there should be. And when we really look at the number of jobless claims and where unemployment is, it's not so good. And so at some point, some things are going to come to head, and I think it's going to even out. And it'll be interesting to see what the Fed decides to do in regards to how much they're purchasing and how much they do want to control interest rates. They want to keep them low. They believe that this is very much helping to stimulate our economy. And so time will tell, but just buy now while they're low. And it's worth it to get out there and work on a strategy to be able to purchase in this market and sell and get into that house that better meets your needs. It's just people have more needs and desires now than I remember seeing, whether it's a home office or an extra bedroom. Everyone's spending more time at home. So it's just reminding them, I think, of those reasons.
You know, I think that's a good point too, is that, you know, and to what Mindy was saying earlier and the conversations that Dave was having, that it's such a good time right now. The money is so inexpensive, you know, and even if you have to increase your budget, it doesn't necessarily increase your payment because of what those interest rates are. So it's not, so your money going towards your house doesn't necessarily affect your monthly budget and what you have to, money you've got to live on. So I just think that it's, you know, that when people look at these things, that going over list price, going over that is this, that it's not all of the things that we've been trained and programmed our whole lives to believe that it's like you're giving something more than something's worth or anything like that. So,
yep.
Well, guys, thank you so much for everybody spending the time today. And Dave, thank you so much for for joining us and giving us the latest update. We're going to be looking forward to next quarter getting back with you and seeing how things are going. And you know, like we talked about earlier, the need to pivot is just always going to be there. So how we're pivoting through this year. So thank you guys all for being a part of that. Next week, we're going to be discussing, you know, some planning and how you're structuring your year. You know, I had a great opportunity to sit down with Mindy and Sarah from her team, and we talked about their whole plan for the entire year of how they are engaging with their clients and all that. And yesterday, Michelle Colbert, who's going to be on next week, we sat down and we went through that same exercise. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to dive into that and talk about what those things look like and how all that's figured out. So I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. Does anybody have anything coming up that they want to make sure that there are any events or anything coming up that they want to make sure they get mentioned?
I have an ask. Does that
Yes.
count? Okay.
Let's do it.
So the Amy Jones Group does a series called Live, Love, Local, where we highlight local businesses, nonprofits, and community organizations. We started this series last year, and this year we're committed to doing 48 more of them. They're professionally produced pieces that are given to the businesses that they then can use as their own marketing materials also. And so this year I kind of came up with this wacky idea that I would like to reserve a dozen of those for actual people. So not necessarily businesses, but people who've been instrumental in building the Southeast Valley. So that could be anything. It could be, I think I might get lucky to talk to Dr. Castile. So we'll be able to talk about like the Chandler Unified School District and the development of Chandler and all of those kinds of things. But if anyone out there is or knows someone who could give me some good history of the Southeast Valley, I've got some really fun ideas, but I need you guys to introduce me to these people. So that's my ask.
I love it. That's going to be a lot of fun and something cool to watch. Yeah.
That's awesome. Great idea.
Dave, you have anything coming up?
We don't. I would like to say we just did our virtual client appreciation that Fidelity helped us put on. It was amazing. It was awesome. So we did a call-in-a-thon that Tammy brought to us, and I want to do that at least twice a year. So we had 140 clients call in. I think we got 52 referrals, and we gave away a Traeger. Awesome. We gave away, staycations, and it had such a great response. So thanks to Fidelity for that idea. But yeah, we connected with a bunch of clients that they called us. Like, we're not calling you, you call us. And like entering, it was funny. We were all in one little room together, and it's like, no, I can't enter you in that for twice, but if you introduce us to somebody, we can. But yeah, it was a great idea. So to do a virtual event, loved it. Great idea. So,
really fun.
So we just wrapped that up, but I'm not sure what we're going to do next, whether we're COVID restricted or not. But,
yeah, well, that's what Mindy was part of the original of those, which we were introduced to. And so thank you so much for that, Mindy, because we've got so many partners who've benefited by that now. So, so it's really cool. So,
very fun.
Okay, well, again, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time this morning, and we look forward to seeing everybody back here next week. Dave, we're looking forward to next quarter when we get to catch up and see where we're at on the goals. And
sounds good.
And you guys all have a great rest of your day, and it's almost the weekend, so great weekend as well. I might be vacation-minded already. I go on vacation to whatever.
Thanks,
but anyway, sometimes.
Thanks, Mindy.
All right, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.